Hi, welcome to the channel Budget Audio Review and Upgrades. Now, I'm going to drop that title very shortly, that Budget Audio Review and Upgrades. I'm just going to mention it a few more times, letting you know I'm going to drop it. I'm just going to leave it as Michael Yates. It's me. I'm just going to say welcome to my channel, and it's me, like kind of thing. I've got me kind of niche subscribers, and hopefully they're going to stick around with me. Well, maybe just diverse, just a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Just bring a few other little bits and pieces, see how it goes, kind of thing, just to try and build up the channel, etc. Just in case I don't always get hold of a bit of HiFi. Most of the time I do, but just in case it's something a little bit related to it. Try not to diverse too much, obviously, but just try and bring a few more bits and pieces. Don't ask me what yet, it's just in case. I just thought I'd rather just keep it as it is, rather than keep saying welcome to Budget Audio Review and Upgrades, and you've got that silly little title at the beginning, you've got to skip 5 seconds past to get rid of. So that's just going to be me kind of thing, and what I've got, what I've bought recently kind of thing to do with electronics, HiFi, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try and keep it obviously towards the HiFi theme as it is. I mean, there's plenty of stuff for me to get still, that's for certain. Anyway, done a little bit of a prank on there. I hope I didn't catch too many people out. April the 1st, full I've done on this video, on obviously April the 1st, which was about 8 days ago now, something like that. If you want to see that video, the link's at the top. I don't think I fooled too many people, but it may have been 1 or 2 people that didn't realise it was an April Fool. There was a couple of subtle hints in the video. In fact, there was 3 of them. So if you haven't seen that video, you may want to have a little look at it and see if you can find out where them 3 subtle hints were. Calling this a short cable receiver. Obviously no such thing, and the cable's plentiful, as you can see. It's a long old cable. What I've done was edit it in Photo Paint or Paint Shop or whatever I use to make it look like a short cable. It's the full cable that comes with this, and it's quite a long cable actually, and it's one of them cables that's got the earth wire wrapped around it. So it's the original cable, the way they did it back then in late 60s, early 70s, something like that, when this receiver come out. A couple of people asked me afterwards. I was going to bring it to the channel anyway, obviously, if I do a review on this channel. So here it is. This is the Sansui 350 receiver. Right, before I actually start the review, I just want to say a couple of things. Don't forget this unit came out in about 1968 to 1970. So you're talking over 50 years ago. Now, things in this can go, can start swaying off where they should be, like, you know what I mean? Say, for instance, the capacitor is supposed to be 22 microfarad. That could differ to 18 or 10 microfarad. It could quite easily drift off to where it's supposed to be, and that's with a few other parts in here as well. Resistors can kind of lose their tolerance and resistance value and all that. So I think you've got to take that into account. I can only give you a review of what I've actually got here and how it sounds to me. This is my kind of like, I am listening to it as I'm seeing it, kind of thing, sound wise, with the speakers I'm using, etc. So it could obviously differ with better sets of speakers than I've got, but I've only got budget speakers. This is a budget channel, so we're trying to keep it all budget. You know what I mean? I'm not matching up a 40 or 50 pound amp with £1,000 pair of speakers, that kind of thing. I think you've got an idea. It's kind of all in that kind of ballpark price range that hopefully, if you're coming here to see and what this is about and what it's like, you're going to match it with something similar. You're not going to buy this and go and spend £2,000 on a pair of speakers to go with it. What I want to thought so anyway. So it's kind of in the ballpark figure. Maybe someone that goes and buys a £2,000 amplifier is going to go and buy a £2,000 or £3,000 pair of speakers to go with it. So I'm kind of keep it in that price range. You can quite easily say, well, why don't you get a better pair of speakers? It sounds much better on these, or these speakers sound much more better on this amplifier. But then some speakers are 40 quid and the amplifier is £500. So try and take that into account on the things that I'm kind of reviewing. Like I say, I can only go with what I got. I'm going to do a separate video. I think I'm kind of like my experiences I've got, because I bought quite a few items off of eBay and places like that, all different places that are over 50 years old, and a high percentage of them, I would have said, quite a high percentage than you probably think of, and you think there would be, hasn't really worked that well. You know what I mean? It's conked out a little while afterwards, or hasn't worked to start off with, all that kind of stuff. So I think once it gets to this kind of age, things probably do need sorting out inside, i.e. the capacitors probably top of the list, that kind of thing. Maybe a few dodgy transistors, etc. But anyway, it works. Let's put it that way. It works. I can only give how it sounds to me, as is. That's with all the stuff I buy, and it's going to be pretty typical for anyone that goes and buys these items. I think it's not everyone's going to buy an item and then suddenly start mending it or swapping, or what should I say, upgrading it. to better capacitors, all that kind of stuff. Not many people are going to do that. It's going to be on the small percentage wise. Most people just come and buy the unit, plug it in and use as is. So just kind of bear that in mind, I think. Anyway, here it is. This is the 350 receiver by Sansui. So first of all, let's have a little look up close. I'll show you a picture of the front. I'm going to show you a picture of the rear there as well. Now we're going to have a little look inside just to show you what's inside this unit. As you can see, it's not in bad shape inside considering how old it is, but like I say, I think, you know, it's maybe time that some of these capacitors were changed, you know, a complete recap or something like that could be done, and probably get more out of the unit. If we just look at the underside here, something that would have happened maybe back then in the late 70s, early 60s, late 60s, early 70s, somewhere around that period, is where some of these manufacturers actually stuck the instructions or the schematics, the circuit diagram on the bottom of the case. So when you went and bought this receiver, amplifier, that kind of thing, you actually got a circuit diagram with it. Something that don't really happen these days. You don't go and buy a piece of HiFi or something with a circuit diagram. You go and buy a latest Apple phone and they give you the circuit diagram for it or nothing like that. So it's something that's lost its way over the years. You know, they started off doing this and it kind of fizzled out. So it's nice to get the original circuit diagram with it, even though there's plenty of them about on the internet to download, people scan these in, etc. But it's still nice to have the original circuit diagram. You know, just brings a little bit more, just makes it feel a little bit more better, a bit more nostalgia, just, you know, makes it feel better, I think, getting that diagram or the original manual with it, the original box, all that kind of stuff, just makes it a bit more personal, that kind of thing. Right, okay, so how did this unit actually sound? Just before I get onto the sound, I mustn't forget to mention, I keep forgetting to mention on these receivers about, talking about, and the amplifiers as well, mainly on the receivers, obviously, talking about the reception of the radio and also the phono stage, how that actually sounds as well. And most of the time, they stay pretty consistent with the actual unit itself, and that was the case here as well. The phono stage sounded pretty consistent to the rest of the unit. You know, it was a reasonable kind of phono stage in it. It was quite detailed in that. It stayed pretty consistent with the rest of it. It didn't let the unit down, let's put it that way. And the radio, it was quite a strong, you know, give quite a strong, like, had quite a strong reception just for a piece of wire sticking out the back, that kind of thing. I'm not a million miles away from the receiver, I must admit. Sorry, the transmitter, should I say. But this receiver did, you know, bring in the stations, you know, quite well. If you get one of them dipole aerials, then plastic dipole aerials, you can pick up for about £4 or £5, just a piece of wire that splits into two at the top. Then that's all the better. I tried that with it, and then obviously it's a lot better, brings them in more stronger and gets rid of that little bit of a backgroundness as well. So it's well worth getting one of them if you're going to buy one of these receivers rather than just a little piece of wire sticking out the back. You've only got to stick it up against the wall and pan it out. And you may have to move it around a bit, different angles and that, but on the whole, you know, you should get a better reception out of one of them, maybe just a piece of wire hanging out the back. Like I say, the phono stage was pretty consistent with the rest of the unit. So how did this actually sound? Kind of normal setup. I usually bring out 3 or 4 different sets of speakers to put with this to make sure they all kind of match up well. You know, just don't bring out one pair and if they don't quite match up, and you're not getting a true sound. You know, out of the you know, the sound is true representation, so to say. And again, I'm going to have to stress, don't forget, I can only go by the unit I've got here, and don't forget this is over 50 years old, and I do think that now these kind of units at this kind of age probably do need the capacitors replaced inside, so bear that in mind if you're buying one of these. And talking about buying one of these, how much do they go for here in the UK? I'm only looking at UK prices. I picked up this unit for £40, but they do vary from that £40 up to, I've seen them for about £170. Not selling for that, I buy it now at £170, so you know, they kind of range in that price bracket. I'm comparing this with a 331 to give you some kind of idea of the difference. Now the 331 come out in about 1975, so probably 6 or 7 years after this. This is 18 watts a channel, that 331 is 12 watts a channel, and it's quite a nice little receiver, that 331. Okay, so where should we start? If I start at the bass end here, the bass in this unit was a bit on the shy side, the bass. You know, you would have to start reaching up and turning that bass up to get any reasonable kind of bass, you know, the drums, etc., the kick drum, that kind of thing. To kind of get the weight of it and the feel of it, you're going to have to come up and twiddle that bass knob, and you're going to have to turn it a quarter of a turn. So I don't know if it went up to 10, it was in 2s or 1s, but say it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'd have to put it on number 3, have to put it at 3 o'clock. So yeah, that's the amount of bass. The bass was a little bit, it still wasn't bad, it was rounded, it had a bit of detail to it. you know, it weren't too bad, but it could have been better defined, I think, the bass. It was just lacking a little bit there, the bass. Just had a little bit, just lacking that oomph and that kind of focus as well. It wasn't really focused, really, the bass. The mids weren't too bad. The vocals were quite smooth. They was just lacking some detail, and they could do with more focus and definition as well. It's like when I compare it with that 331, the bass on that 331 was a lot better, more defined, more involved in that bass than it is on here. Also, the vocals there, these vocals were kind of smoothed off to a kind of point where you wasn't getting the full. If you know the vocals in, you say, the mid-range as well, if you could kind of imagine a trumpet being playing, and I'll go back to the vocals as well, you could hear the croaking of the voice, you know, you could feel the voice, it was coming kind of thing, in the kind of different stages of the voices, it's building up, and that it was kind of smoothed off in here, and it wasn't as apparent as it was on the 331. And if you can imagine, like say, maybe blowing a trombone or something like that, you could feel the wind coming down the trombone to produce the sound. You could feel that with the 331 a lot more than you could hear with this 350 receiver. It was just kind of like the note, and you wasn't getting the texture. You wasn't getting the kind of like the timbre of it kind of thing. You just wasn't getting that with this unit. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just, and this was the same with the top end as well, the treble and that. The treble wasn't, you know, it's quite a nice. It's got quite high end to it, and that the treble it's quite nice. It just wasn't detailed and clear. It was just a little bit unfocused. Everything felt a little bit unfocused with it, like with me. You know, the detail was there, but it was just smoothed off, and it's a little bit vague kind of thing, a little bit vague. And this was, like I say, this is ranged from the bass, the mids, and the treble. Now, this is where these capacitors probably maybe taking, you know, coming into play here, that they need all replacing in the tone board and throughout the amplifier, maybe to kind of sharpen this up, tighten it back up, bringing it to where it could be. I'm only guessing. You could quite easily do a recap and it'd be exactly the same kind of thing, but I think that's maybe where this letting this receiver down a little bit. It could be that, and it's something to bear in mind if you're buying something that's 50 plus years old, that maybe this is your first port of call, is start changing a few capacitors, just trying to sharpen things up to where they used to be. So yeah, it was a little bit on the fuzzy side, this amplifier. You know, if I was trying to, it was a bland, you know, it was bland really compared with that 331. It's a bit bland. I'm not saying it's a bad amp. I mean, if you went and got this for £40, it ain't bad, you know what I mean? It's just not good, you know. It doesn't go, you know, it doesn't go that little bit further and become a good amplifier kind of thing. It's not a bad amplifier, you know. I wouldn't say it's bad because it's not a bad amplifier as is. It's not bad at all. You know, it's not one of these things you think, oh, I can't listen to that. That's no good. It was all right. It wasn't too bad at all. It's just it was just lacking the, like I say, you weren't getting involved with it. It's just to me, it's just a bit on the bland side. I mean, I kind of say things, over exaggerating it maybe, like, so you're going to take out some of the reviews I've done, maybe all that's a load of rubbish, he thinks. It's not the case. If it's complete rubbish, I would say this is poor, I don't recommend it kind of thing. It's just like I'm saying, you know, you can get better kind of thing, and it's not bad for the £40. If you're paying £40 or £50 for it, it's not bad. You know what I mean? You've got receiver, it does quite a few things. So all in all, it's not a bad unit. If you know, I won't definitely put you off of it, but I just want you to bear in mind, you know, if you're buying something that old, that things could, you know, need changing, and sooner than later kind of thing. And I think, you know, if you did change them, when I get time, if I still got it, obviously space is the premium. I'm going to start recapping some of these amplifiers and receivers, etc. when I get a chance. I haven't really got the room here at the moment. We are hopefully moving. I keep saying it, but hopefully moving. We're going to move soon-ish, and then I'm going to get my own little bench and everything and have a bit more space, and hopefully start actually doing a before and after of recapping some of these things. But as is at the moment, and it's something, you know, maybe the way you're going to go buy it as well, being this old, you're going to get something very, very similar. I just think, you know, it's not a bad amplifier, but it's not a good amplifier, if you know what I mean. You know, if you had a choice between this, say at £60 or £70, and the 331 at say £80, something like that, you know, I'd go for the 331 all the time. It's more involving. It's just, everything was more sharper. Let's go on to the sound stage on this. The sound stage was quite nice, went beyond the speakers. It had a reasonable amount of airiness to it, the kind of Sansui airiness, the Sansui kind of sound, and that. It just lacked that focus, like, you know, it's just lacking, not by a million miles, but it was just lacking a bit in the focus, the instrument placement. It was just a little bit hazy kind of thing, a little bit wandering sometimes, a little bit hazy. You just want a more sharper, know exactly where they're coming from, and got that space around them as well. It kind of like intermingled everyone together a little bit, like, you know what I mean? It wasn't that focus, wasn't getting defined at all. Yeah, so it wasn't bad, don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad, but I kind of recommend it, you know what I mean? If you're going to look for this and you're thinking about getting this, I won't put you off of it. But I think it's coming back to what I said before. It's you remember how this is, it's the capacitors maybe need replacing this. So, you know, the main thing I think of this compared with that 331, and like I say, I've got the lacking the bass, lacking the detail, a bit fuzzy in that. It's just that 331 give more of a texture to everything, you know what I mean? Everything sounded nice, the trumpet and that sounded nice. It was just, this was smoothed over, just smooth and vague and a little bit blurry, if you kind of think, you know, if you kind of imagine a picture being a bit blurry, this sound was a little bit blurry. So that's it. I think I've really wrapped it up really there. So like I say, I won't put you off of it. It's not that bad that I'll say don't get it, that's for certain. But there is better. It's kind of like run of the mill, but there is better about, and you know, it could be better. But yeah, so don't pay too much for it, that's what I'm saying. Not unless someone's restored it or something like that, or you go around and listen to it and it's in better shape maybe than this one, I don't know. But you know, so I can only go by what I've got in front of me. But yeah, it's all right kind of thing. Okay, I think you've got the gist of this, I think, by now. Just make sure I haven't missed anything else here. Yeah, the singer here, if you go back to the vocals here a bit, where that 331 was involving, brought that singer nice and forward, you know what I mean? The singer was there amongst the instruments playing, and that you was kind of focused on that singer, like you was listening to it, you was enjoying it. It's just made that singer just a little bit more in the back, just a little bit more blander, kind of blending in with everything else, not really standing out. So, you know, that's on the vocal side. Okay, until the next video, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.